So maybe if you want to let me know. Cool. I might just get started. I think it's just a small group this week. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming. I'm going to share my screen now, so I'll disappear, but you should be able to see what I have on my screen. So this webinar is on minimizing food waste and kind of like an introduction to veganism, but I think it's not quite just like an introduction, but kind of, I think veganism is a really broad topic and there's a lot that is encompassed within it theoretically and like systemically, so and practically, I guess. So this is gonna just be looking at a few little bits, and I'm not an expert. Like my background is vegan chefing and kind of environmental volunteering, so yeah, I'm not like I don't know, I guess I'm a professional vegan but not a professional researcher. So this is all stuff I've done through lived experience or just interest, I guess. So firstly, I want to like just say, I'm not here to make anyone a vegan. I can't do that. Only people can change themselves. So I don't want anyone to feel guilty about any of the information if they're not vegans, or if anyone here is not a vegan watching this. But if you do feel guilty, maybe like think about that, I guess. But what I want to do is just educate you on some things. So everything I say in this PowerPoint is fact checked. So yeah, it's all real stats. Everything is backed up. So yeah, firstly, I kind of, when I went to do this, I was thinking of what is veganism. So I wrote my own definition, but after that, I decided to first include what the Oxford definition was and then what the Vegan Society definition is, because I think a lot of people mistake a plant-based diet for veganism and interchange the two quite a lot, but I do think there is a big difference. So I'd say the Oxford Cambridge definition kind of defines it in the sense that is plant-based. So that is the practice of not eating or using any animal products such as meat, fish, eggs, cheese, or leather. Whereas the Vegan Society definition is that veganism is a philosophy and way of living which seeks to exclude as far as possible and practicable all forms of exploitation and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, any other purpose, or by extension, promote the development and use of animal-free alternatives for the benefit of animals, humans, and the environment. In dietary terms, it denotes the practice of dispensing with all products derived wholly or partly from animals. So I think you can kind of see the difference between just being plant-based and then the mindset of a vegan, maybe. I think a lot more like ethical thought has gone into considering like the non-human as an other rather than like as a commodity in the vegan sense. So before I researched that, I wrote my own definition, which is an ethical commitment to consume as ethically as possible without commodifying or instrumentalizing other animals for our own consumption. So a commitment motivated by compassion for the non-human outside the realms of human health. So like quickly why I went vegan, I started as vegetarian, so that kind of linked to Buddhist practice and looking at reducing suffering in the world around me and within myself, and looking like coming at it from that lens, I started looking at the ethics around animals. That was at about 16, 50, I don't know, when I was a teenager. And I learned about ecological damages caused by the meat and dairy industry as I went along, as well as like the health impacts on myself. I started to see like I was healthier, and then when I wasn't eating dairy as well, I was even healthier, way less inflamed and stuff. So 3 years ago I went vegan, and then I chefed at 2 vegan establishments before now working at a vegetarian one, which a bit questionable, but yeah. So yeah, my veganism, unlike plant-based living, insists on being inherently anti-racist and anti-fascist as well, which I'll get onto in a bit, and how that kind of links in my eyes. So first I want to go through the ecological benefits of being vegan. So Joseph Paul, who is an Oxford researcher, did a report recently which found, he looked at the environmental impact of the meat industry compared to, and the dairy industry and the farm fishing industry, all of that, compared to vegan lifestyle. And he found that by not eating meat, you cut like if everyone didn't eat meat and we got rid of that industry, we'd cut greenhouse gases by 23%, which is a huge amount, which would reverse the worries we have at the moment around the climate crisis. So better agricultural impact is a benefit of being vegan. It would help as well to reduce and probably just end world hunger, as a lot of the food that is grown in the world isn't being eaten by humans. In fact, 70% of the grain grown in the US feeds livestock, and globally 83% of farmland is set aside to raise animals. It's estimated that 700 million tons of food could be consumed by humans that goes to livestock each year. And just to kind of like put that into perspective, that 70 million tons of food goes to livestock. There are 27 million households in the UK. So that's every year. So if you took out a ton of food a year just to feed each household in the UK, you'd still be left with 673 tons of food for the rest of the world. I know that's like a very British, like starting here, but that's where I live. So, but yeah, so just considering that as like a byproduct of cutting out meat is quite interesting to look at, I think. We'd also have better water. I think a lot of people don't realize that we are heading towards a water shortage, especially the way that agriculture that isn't regenerative on the planet at the moment affects the water source. It's one of the most exploited resources on the planet. So hundreds of millions of people around the world don't have access to clean water. Many more struggle with periodic water scarcity, sometimes because of drought and sometimes because of mismanagement of water resources. So livestock use more fresh water than just about anything else. They're also one of the biggest polluters of fresh water. And in turn, this is kind of because of the way they desertify land as well as consume it. So if you can see that they're consuming 700 million tons of food a year, imagine how much water they're consuming as well. It's quite a lot. And then, yeah, which this would be a benefit that would also circle back to helping the agricultural impact. So more fertile soil. So similar to how livestock pollute water, they also erode and weaken soil. This happens because in most agricultural impacts, they just completely, basically they eat tilled land. So the land gets tilled, crops get planted. That isn't an organic or like regenerative source in itself, and then they desertify the land through eating it, and then basically just more forests get cut down to repeat the process instead of a more regenerative way of looking at it. I don't know if there is a regenerative way of mass livestock agriculture, but I know that the way it is at the moment is really bad. So this is partly because raising livestock usually leads to deforestation, which clears huge swaths of land on the different elements such as trees that provide nutrients and resilience to make room for livestock to roam. The world loses roughly the size of Panama each year to deforestation, which also accelerates climate change. Trees store carbon. So yeah, carbon is a massive part in healthy soil, which growing plants organically or permaculturally would benefit the soil, create more carbon, and we'd have better air, like pure air, better temperatures on the planet. It would be just better in general. So yeah, also we'd have lower energy consumption, so 8 times less energy consumption than animal protein. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, soy does awful things for the planet, but actually a lot of the soy that is grown is used to feed these livestock, and it has a very small impact. Oat and soy plant milks are 2 of the lowest impact milks when it comes to energy consumption. So next is health benefits. So I promise that we'll get less statisticky and a bit more fun in a bit. But yeah, so some health benefits. By going vegan, you lower your blood sugar. Those on vegan diets have a 50 to 78% chance lower of getting type 2 diabetes in the future. So yeah, if you can just think of it, cutting out dairies and meats and kind of like the sugar in dairy that you get compared to like the sugar in plants, or if you're eating like highly processed foods that contain animal products compared to like just eating natural, like unprocessed sugars, so things that occur naturally in like vegetables and plants, you're gonna decrease that risk. Also, you get better nutrient density when substituting meats for vegetables. Those on a vegan diet also avoid heme ions in their diets and a smaller risk of consuming microplastics and antibiotics. So yeah, it's kind of like cutting out the middleman. So when you eat an animal, you're eating the nutrients that they've eaten from the ground, but they've been processed and changed so in a way that isn't necessarily good for you. It decreases the nutrient density plus adds some things in, so you get things like heme ions, which you won't find in plants. That's something that's kind of like modified through the process. So cutting out the middleman kind of increases the nutrient density and increases like things like fiber. Fiber is really important. I think people don't realize how fiber deficient especially the British nation is, and that is a really important thing to consider, I think. And as well, in terms of microplastics and antibiotics, I'll go on to antibiotics later, but microplastics, especially in the sea, so eating fishes, has been said by the World Health Org, like just to avoid it because of microplastics. But as well as that, the environmental impact of fish farming, people don't realize it creates as much methane as beef cattle farming. So it's really bad for the environment. Going vegan will also lower your risk of kidney failure. So this is one I didn't know too much about before putting this together, but yeah, some studies show that following a vegan diet has reduced the risk of their kidneys not functioning properly. This is usually due to switching the types of proteins they consume. So consuming like more complex proteins, which are higher nutrient dense. Yeah, you have a lower risk of developing cancers. So the World Health Org have actually released in the past year to just stop eating pork altogether, stop eating pig, because it's bad for you. It's proven to be bad for you, and it's a carcinogen. So yeah, go and Google that later if you're interested in that. But yeah, the World Health Organization have stated that about 1/3 of cancers are affected by the diet and other aspects of your control. This means you could minimize the risk of 1/3 cancers by taking steps to change your lifestyle. The vegan lifestyle is one that you want to follow. Legumes have shown a 9 to 18% chance of reducing the risk of developing colorectal cancer. Meanwhile, eating more fresh fruit and vegetable a day offers a 15% chance of reducing the risk of dying from cancer. A lot of this is due to like lower inflammation levels in the body. Yeah, and a lower cholesterol as well. So that's something that's very recognized in the difference between vegans and non-vegans, like as a whole. Obviously, like everyone should eat a healthy diet, and like I wouldn't say going vegan will immediately just make you healthier, but it will actually have a huge effect on these things. It will lower your blood sugar straight away. It will lower the amount of carcinogens you're intaking, and it will lower your cholesterol and inflammation levels. So it also lower the risk of developing heart diseases. People on a vegan diet showed a 42% decreased risk of dying from heart disease. In fact, those on a vegan diet showed a 75% decreased risk of having high blood pressure, which is a precursor to heart disease. The cholesterol levels in vegans were also much lower than in a meat eater. So this also, like going on a vegan diet will also reduce arthritic pain, because it's like a natural way of like creating less inflammation in your body. It improves physical performance because you're lowering inflammation and carcinogens, and significantly lower cholesterol. So next, I'm just going to run through some misconceptions that you see pop up on social media and stuff quite a lot. So only vegans need supplements. This isn't necessarily true. I think if you're not able to sustain a healthy lifestyle just because of maybe you're like a very busy person, you don't know much about nutrient density in foods and stuff, then I'd say anyone needs it, but you can get things like calcium, B12, vitamin D, vitamin K2, proteins, omega-3s, all of that are richer in source from certain vegetables and fruits. So that's a misconception. Another misconception is that vegans need to drink milk to get calcium. Yeah, this isn't true. You can get great calcium sources from things like pumpkin seeds, spinach, broccoli, and kale all have higher levels of calcium than drinking milk. A lot of milks have actual calcium put into them as well in the dairy industry. And you're cutting out the antibiotic counterpart of drinking dairy milk by eating vegan calcium sources. Onions are actually a really good source of calcium too, surprisingly. Yeah, another misconception is that veganism is white. In America, there are actually, I think it's 52% of vegans in America are Black. The vegan capital of the world is Tehran. I think the misconception here is that it's because people profiting off of words like veganism and plant-based foods are white companies and stuff. So people associate it with white privilege, and I do think there are areas of the industry where that happens, but again, that's the industry and not the ethics. A lot of cultures have been eating like vegan for a long time, but the word vegan hasn't come around until like half a century ago, along with the vegan society, so that's quite new. Vegan diets are not suitable for children. Again, you can get all the nutrient density you need from plants. So that's not true. Vegan companion animal diets are dangerous. So yeah, there's a lot of stigma around making your dog or your cat or something vegan, and I honestly, until quite recently, agreed with that. I thought, oh no, like they need to eat animal products themselves, but I learned later on, I can't remember the name of what is put into it, but the vitamins that they do need are outsourced and put into the meat-based products that like a cat would eat, the same as they are into plant-based things. So there's some things where they're just like, you're gonna find them in either way, but vegan, I've met vegan animals and they are like a lot healthier. I've seen them live longer and like shinier coats, stuff like that. So it's definitely not dangerous, but definitely something you need to research before. Don't just make your dog vegan, and yeah, look into it first. Vegan diets make you weak. I think, yeah, this is a massive misconception. Poor diets make you weak. So if you're eating beans on toast every day, every meal, yeah, you're gonna be weaker than someone who's eating the right nutrients. Soy is bad for the environment. Yeah, like I said, it's not soya that's bad for the environment, it's the culture around it, farming for livestock and meat-based agricultural systems. So yeah, I want to go into a bit about dairy as well, because a lot of people, I guess, think that like if you cut out meat, and you just eat dairy, it's a bit more humane, but unfortunately that's not true. Yeah, the dairy industry is no more humane than the meat industry. If anything, it's worse. With the dairy industry, there are a lot of sub parts that come into it. So you get things like indirectly supports the veal industry. So male calves are separated from their mums instantly. So that creates a massive amount of distress in both parties in that relationship. They're then pushed into very small confined spaces, and the veal calves will be taken and used for the meat industry. So if you are like a vegetarian, you're indirectly supporting the meat industry, unfortunately. Artificial insemination, fertility hormones, and antibiotics are backbones of products in the dairy industry. So cows are artificially inseminated, and as well, like when the mothers give birth, their babies are ripped away from them straight away, so that the milk can be used for the dairy industry, stuff like that. Fertility hormones as well to keep them producing milk, and then they're on antibiotics because of all of these processes and because of the environments they're living in, unfortunately. So yeah, dairy cows only live until about 5 years old maximum. Organic farm cows are allowed to live around 1 year longer. But the average cow can live up to, the oldest cow is 48, but they averagely live around to about 20 to 30 years. As well, I'd like to say about organic farm cows. So a lot of people are like, oh, well, I get organic beef just down the road. There's the products that they're usually consuming is still being outsourced from some other countries. So that the food that they're eating is having a much bigger effect on the planet than, say, poorly produced tofu. Like if it's like high energy consuming tofu compared to like some organic tofu, it's still worse for the environment, and it's still a less ethical process on that level. So some ways to think vegan, as opposed to plant-based. I'd say like eat vegetables, eat fiber, keep it plant-based is the basis. A way to think vegan in like a way of like ethical environmental issues as well, I'd say. So like push it past how you're viewing it on like a dietary way and like into a more practical way to view the world around you and cultivate that like environmental connection. So like growing your own vegetables and herbs, if you've got the space, like, or windowsill or something like that. You can even do it from like veg cuttings, like scraps, which I'm going to go into a bit later. So yeah, like being vegan, always read the labels. Where does it come from as well is like a big thing, I think. So like you could be eating completely plant-based, but if you're buying like your raspberries from like Puerto Rico, there's a big energy consumption there as opposed to like getting them from a local farm store or something if there's one near to you. Or just eating seasonally in general. I think that has a really good environmental impact, and like it makes what you cook with a lot more creative. And you learn more about food, I think. So also when you can eat organic, I understand that like organic food is generally more expensive, and I wish I could eat like organic all the time, and I can't. But I think if like going back to the 27 million households in the UK, if like a tenth of those households ate organic all day for 1 day of the week, that's like 2.7 million households eating organically for like a seventh of the week, which is going to have an effect on like business and like how people view consuming. So there'll be a drop in inorganic sales and increase in organic sales. So like even if people think like, oh, that's not gonna do much on an individual level, it will. and I think they'll encourage more organic farming. Even just like getting together with friends, like an allotment costs, I think it's £70 a year max, like in the north. So if you like 7 people chipped in for an allotment, that's £10 to grow a lot of organic veg. Even if you're like just growing potatoes, you've got like £10 for possibly like a year's worth of organic potatoes. I think that's a way to cut around like the financial side of it. It just takes a bit more effort. So next, yeah, recycle food, eat things you'd usually throw away. That's something I'm also going to go into in the next couple slides. And yeah, just don't judge others who aren't financially able to make these choices. So like I do food parcels and stuff, and these people getting these food parcels, a lot of them have like families of 9, and I don't think like veganism is something they even consider because of the financial stresses they're under. So if you see these kinds of like situations and you think vegans are judging them, those people are being bad vegans, and I think no one should judge anyone else's situation. And you should, yeah, respect your peers, actively oppose injustice. And if you do see a situation where you think like, oh, like teaching on veganism or teaching on, I could do something to help people who could be eating vegan, or I could do something like start like a Food Not Bums, do something in your local area to increase that awareness. Yeah, so I want to quickly go into the link between decolonial thinking and veganism. So I've got 2 videos for this. So I don't know how this is going to work, to be honest. But first, I want to show you a video of some sheep, I think. Yeah, okay. So I want, first the question, is being human morally relevant? So I want you to think about that question while watching this video. So I met some sheep last week at a vegan like animal sanctuary in Chesterfield, and maybe it's because I'm a vegan that I saw them like this, but I saw them as individuals, and I saw them as, I felt like we were all making friends with them. So I kind of want you to like look at this video as if these sheep are individuals while questioning, is being human morally relevant? Just like a mental exercise before I show you a video relating to decolonial thinking in terms of veganism. So this is the video of the sheep. There's no sound, just so you can think. So is being human morally relevant? Yeah, cool. So following that, I'm just going to show you a video on a concept called, it's called Black veganism. That's not relating to having to be Black to practice this veganism. It's more linking race to veganism in a way of, I'll just let her explain it. She's going to say it in a much better way. But Silko is a vegan activist and a race activist who co-founded the Afroisms activist group. So. Yeah, I've just been told the videos aren't playing, so I'll try and okay, this should work for the vegan. Can everyone see that? Just
Yeah.
nod. Okay, cool. So yeah, this is to kind of like look at the is being human morally relevant question, I guess, in more detail. Okay, cool. I'm gonna reshare the PowerPoint somehow. Thank you to Helen for inviting me to participate in this. This is part of. Sorry about that. Yeah, so after that, I guess I want to share a quote she's put saying an animal ethic is generated from within anti-racist commitment. So I guess the reason I've included this and think it's quite important is because of thoughts around binaries, I guess, and binaries within like species, as well as I guess race is an easy way to apply it, as we see things like I guess the first philosophical debate that happened in the New World, which was actually settled by trial, which most philosophical debates like aren't, was whether indigenous people were human, which is ridiculous. People were having relationships with indigenous people, they were learning from indigenous people, but that was still a question, that was still a topic. And that is in the bracket of race terms. So I guess we need to look at like the narratives of animality in the context of veganism, like we do with the narrative of race, and how these narratives are imposed on people. Like you see narratives imposed on people within gender, within disabilities, within race issues, and within things like homophobia. So it's always about creating a binary, I think. So I'm not saying we should go after the people or the animal, we should go after the narrative surrounding it and break down binaries. So instead of seeing people and animals as different, but still recognizing there will be differences, like we're all animals, but we're different species, but we still, like the question, like hold different relevances and are relevant, but is being human morally relevant? So I guess the argument being the concept of the human and the concept of the non-human understood racially to inform how we think about non-human animals. So I actually was standing, this is a bit of a tangent, but I was standing outside the supermarket earlier and had a thought while thinking about what I was going to say. And I wrote, it's binaries. And then I wrote, and early vegan theory, like that of Peter Singer. If you don't know who Peter Singer is, he's quite an early vegan theorist. He's not, I don't agree with everything he says, but if you're interested in looking into vegan literature, I think he's quite interesting. So early vegan theory, like that of Peter Singer, looked to reinforce those binaries, but as opposed to sanctify the livestock, start to sanctify the human counterpart. So, which in turn creates this idea of human sacrifice associated with veganism. This is again based on binaries and caste systeming, instead of a less binary approach to achieving liberation for all. So kind of, I guess, thinking like, you're not, if you're vegan, you don't have to sacrifice things. You're not giving up something because you're not, that animal isn't yours in the first place. You shouldn't be looking to commodify something that isn't yours. You're just existing with, and you should be working for the liberation of other within the context of yourself, and kind of breaking down binaries and that narrative. Yeah, so I've written on the PowerPoint, you cannot be vegan if you do not hold the same ethics for other humans than yourself. Veganism must be anti-fascist, unlike being plant-based. Yeah, so that's how I kind of view veganism. Vegan opens up the ability to have a wider impact for struggles for social justice, to think of political issues. So I think if you're vegan, you should be thinking about what you can do on a social level, how you can benefit. Like, you shouldn't just be eating tofu, you should be having an impact within your community, or working towards educating people on how to, or doing something, I guess, within your choices. I think everything you consume or put out is a vote, whether you kind of like it or not, I guess. So yeah, here are some vegan activists and theorists to check out. Silko was one that was just on the video, so if anyone wants to kind of like write those down. I've also got, this is a really good book. It's called Veganism, Sex and Politics. So it's by a London-based queer activist who was involved in hunt sabbing, quite a lot of different things, who wrote a book. Yeah, there'll be questions at the end, by the way, if that's cool. But if you want to ask now, I guess go for it. I'll try and answer and keep up. Yeah, so then there's people like Breeze Harper, who's also a queer activist and educator. She has a couple different opinions from Silko. There's Earthling Ed, who's London-based. He's really good if you're trying to educate kids. And then Rich Roll, who's an athlete, also really good, got a good podcast. So then, yeah, some vegan-minded charities and organizations to get involved with. Yeah, Hunt Subs are really good. Animal Aid's really good. Vegans Against World Hunger. Food Not Bombs is a good one too. If anyone wants this presentation to look back on, I'll send you some information. I'll send my email out in the chat at the end. So this is the second part, which is linked to a bit of how I like to view veganism. The more fun part, I think. Well, not fun, but like more maybe interesting counterpart to this. So minimizing food waste at home, I think, is important as an environmental stance. So to minimize food waste at home, I think keeping your kitchen organized is important. Have an eat first area for your food, compost waste, plan ahead, buy items that can be used in multiple ways, and freeze stuff. And get creative, which is kind of what I want to like show. So you can regrow a lot of vegetable cuttings like on your windowsill in a jar and eat, or like put them in soil. I'd say soil works better, but water is more convenient. So foods you can grow from scraps are romaine, lettuce, carrots. I actually really enjoy the leaves, so you could just grow them and cut the leaves and put it in a salad, and that adds quite a lot of taste. Onions, spring onions, celery, beetroot, coriander, lemongrass, ginger, and garlic are all things you can grow in your kitchen. Water works, but soil works better. So yeah, something that a lot of people don't realize you can do, which minimizes food waste a lot. Like, I don't know how many bananas consumed daily, but you can cook with banana peel. So I'm going to show you a video how to turn like this into like food, I guess. So I made this video the other day. It was quite hard to film, as I'm going to share something else, I think. So yeah, I filmed this with like one hand. So it's not the best video. Let me share. Let me know if the video is not working, because I'm not quite sure how to do this.
No, it's not working.
Okay, is that working? This also on YouTube if you need it or want it, I guess. But yeah, it's basically just a case of like pulling it with a fork. You can fry it, you can bake it, you can use, I've actually written down a whole load of things you can use banana peels for. So they're edible. They include a lot of B6 and a lot of nutrients like potassium. You can use them as a fertilizer in the garden. So if you put them in water for like a day or two, it adds a lot of potassium and nutrient density to the soil you're growing your plants in. They're good for skin, so they're good for eczema, psoriasis, wart removal, and acne scars. So just like rubbing them on your face and leaving it on there for a while. You can blend it into smoothies, you can blend it into hair masks, and you can leave it in the garden. This attracts butterflies to your garden if there's banana peels somehow. But yeah. Yeah, so when I was cooking this banana peel, I kind of just went for like chili, garlic, ginger, mushrooms, peppers, a bunch of spices, and some liquid smoke, olive oil. I think it took like 5 minutes max. So it's really quick. I always like save the banana peel after breakfast. So eat a banana in the morning and then eat the banana peel at lunch. So you're cutting down the amount you're spending on food as well, which is really helpful. Yeah, I made flapjacks out of the banana I used for this. So yeah, I added some oat yogurt to this just to make it a bit like less dry, I guess, because I did add a bit too much spice. So yeah, that was the meal I had. I made some homemade kimchi and I've roasted some veg. So yeah, cool. Another cool thing to minimize food waste in the house is you can use lemon peel for like a lot of stuff. I tend to just add it to my drink, so I'll just add whatever's left, or add zest to salads. But you can actually make like limoncello from it if you're into alcohol. So I'd say you leave it for about 2 weeks. So just some vodka, some sugar, about an equal amount, well, about half amount of the amount of like vodka you're putting in, you'll put in water, and then about an equal amount of like lemons. So if you're using a lot of lemons, it's a good recipe for that. You can also use it for skin, for cleaning, and it's good for composting as well. So another thing I like to do is using coffee grains to make a face mask. But coffee grains are really good for a whole lot of things. So you can use them to fertilize your garden, for composting. They actually keep bugs off of your veg. So if you put them around like the mulch and the topsoil of like say you're growing lettuce, you'll get less caterpillars and stuff eating at them. They're good for natural dyeing, they're good for hair growth if you make like a scalp mask, and for dry skin on your scalp. You can use them to scour pots if you don't buy scourers. It's a good way of doing that. They neutralize odors in your fridge as well, actually. So if you just had like, you use the cafetiere or something, and then you put those coffee grains in a bowl in your fridge, and your fridge is smelling a bit funky, it won't smell funky by the end of the day. Probably clean your fridge, but like if you can't be bothered, that's like, yeah, good way. But yeah, so if you want to make a face mask out of it, I usually use like a bit of plant milk, an equal or less amount of cocoa powder or cacao powder, a tiny bit of olive oil, and the coffee grains, and then just make a paste that usually like keeps for about a week in the fridge. Yeah, cool. And that is all I have to say. So I'll open it up for questions. So I guess if you want to like type in the chat or unmute yourselves, just go for it. Next, Jess.
Hello, my name's Lucas. Nice to see you all here tonight. I was just going to say, do you have a worm bin at all? Because I've recently started a worm bin at my house. So a lot of my food waste, like I'll put some into the compost because you can't actually feed it to the worms. But like a lot of it, like peels and stuff from carrots or peppers or whatever, I'll then put that in there, and then the worms will then recycle that and turn it into compost. Worm poop.
Yeah, I haven't.
Have you tried that yourself?
Personally, but that sounds really good.
Yeah, you should check it out. It's really cool, to be fair. It's quite rewarding. I mean, worms are a bit horrible, but
yeah, they're great though. They're really good for soil. So
yeah, amazing. Yeah.
What's the turnover as well? Like, how quickly does it compost?
So it depends on the worms that you get. I've got some red wrigglers, which are like the ones that you're supposed to get for it. They like eat the most, and they reproduce really quickly and all this. But yeah, you can find them online. There is like a technical name for them, but I quite like red wrigglers.
Cool, nice. Yeah, I'll give that a search. Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Yeah, any other questions or anything?
Hello, can you hear me okay?
You're a bit, wait, okay, yeah, go for it.
Wait, no, can you hear me, or is it
yeah, I realized my volume wasn't full, so that was
okay. Okay, so yeah, as you know, I've been vegan for like 2 and a bit months now, and I've sort of had like this thought in the back of my head. So basically just kind of questioning it. So basically, you know, as you know, there's 3 like prongs to veganism. There's the ethical, the environmental, and the kind of nutritional, personal aspect of it. So like this argument, which I've been thinking about, like it only really concerns the ethical and the environmental case. So in the case of those 2 things, the idea is that like you're trying to forego animal products with the intent of like a kind of critical mass of people, you know, boycotting animal products to kind of like spell the collapse of these industries, right? But the growth for people turning towards veganism is a lot slower than like the growth of the introduction of lab-grown meat, which I think is projected to disrupt the animal agriculture industry more. So in the meantime, it kind of does beg the question, like, is there much point if like veganism isn't going to hit that critical mass of people boycotting it, you know, if it's not going to disrupt the animal agriculture industry as much as lab-grown meat?
That's a really interesting question, but I think that does like go back to what I was saying about the start, is like the difference between just a plant-based diet and going like plant-based for your health or your food compared to like being vegan, and the link between like extending that into environmental, like,
so yeah, it's with that thing, like the nutritional argument still does hold up. It's just, and even still with the environmental and the ethical stuff, like projected figures aren't literally clairvoyant. They're just they're imagining like how many people will go vegan. So you know more people could go vegan in that time. We don't know. So I guess it is good to still stick to that, and just as a way to encourage more people to go vegan, because maybe, you know, much more people could go vegan than we expect.
Yeah, I think so. I think like I always try and remind myself of like when I'm doing things and I'm like, I don't know if it's like having an impact, if something that I want to have an impact, and like the 5 people you're closest to like directly influence you. So say you're like socializing with 5 people and one of them is vegan, it's highly likely that you'll go vegan, but then like of each of those people, the percentage goes down. So I think it's like 70% likely, like 50, and then 25, like the further away, based on things. So it could be like if you're a
That's a good
swimmer,
point.
if anything like that. So like having like a practice that you believe in, I think, or like looking at ethical things, like it will indirectly impact the people like in your outer social circles you don't interact with. Yeah.
Hi, am I okay to say something else?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
So I have an announcement to make. Officially last night I became a vegan.
Nice.
Thanks to this special lady right here. She cooked something so amazing that I was like, okay, I have to become vegan now.
What did you guys have?
What do we have?
Oh,
like jackfruit, some rice and peas, some soup, some plantain, some homemade coleslaw as well. Yeah.
it was absolutely amazing.
2.5 hours of food prep, but it was worth it.
It was great. We were dancing around and cooking. Honestly, I've never felt so good from a meal in my life. So yeah, I'm committed to this now. But I've got some questions. So like I'm starting this with not a great deal of knowledge about it. Have you got any tips for somebody who's looking to get into veganism?
Yeah, actually, something I liked to do when I started was like every week I'd buy something I'd never bought before. Like so, like a different veg or something. So there's a place near like me. I don't know if you're from Leeds or anything, but
Yeah, I live in Armley.
okay, cool. Yeah, I used to go to Abu Bakr every week. This
Oh,
is
I know
like a
exactly
year
what you mean.
into like learning more
Yeah.
about cooking, but like yeah, just buying a different vegetable, a different like thing every week, and then like seeing what I could do with it. And I think that opens up like the spec of like the food. But I think like yeah, like podcasts are fun as well, just to like
Okay.
remind you like, oh, there's like a whole culture out there, people doing things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and as well, like I've got housemates, and I would love to convert them at some point. I've only just become a vegan, but I'm like watching this. I'm like, I want to make everyone vegan. But
Maybe I
how?
think cook together. So like suggest like eating together once a week. Might help. Yeah. If you have like
Yeah,
a curry
yeah.
night or something.
Lucas, can I add something? Like, because you've gone vegan very recently, right? You have it like in very recent memory. Like you've obviously heard vegan arguments before and they didn't convince you or they didn't convince you fully, right? So like what I like to do when I'm trying to convince someone is I think which arguments did and didn't work on me, which arguments did I find preachy, which arguments did I find emotionally compelling, and you will be able to do, kind of reason with people better, you know, because people like we engage with food in such a big way, you know, we engage with it 2 to 3 times a day, and so when you're criticizing something that's a part of people's life, people do get very defensive. And so you have to kind of disarm people and not be too aggressive about it. Because like, you know, I watch a lot of vegan YouTubers, and there's like a way that you can debate, which will get your chat fired up and be like, yeah, destroy this person. But that person isn't actually going to change their mind. There's like, you know, there's different styles of debating. And so you want to go with a more compassionate one.
Yes.
So yeah, just think on yourself, like which arguments worked for me and which arguments didn't work for me. And I think that will help you in convincing people.
Thank you very much.
I think as well, like going back to like you were like, oh, we were like dancing around and having such a great time. Like maybe if you just communicate that vibe more than why someone else should do it, like the things that you're gaining, like people will want that. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. Thank you for the advice. I'll take that into consideration for sure.
I think Jazz, do you want me to unmute you? You look like you're talking, but
Yeah.
cool.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I just did my screen. So I have a question about tofu. I was actually speaking with Bea about this recently. She told me she ate some tofu and I've never really considered it. I've heard some kind of counter arguments for eating it because it's related to soy and it contains estrogen. I'd just like to know a little bit more about it, if anyone could give me insight.
Yeah,
It's like a misconception. It's a kind of
which one are you gonna go with?
Pardon?
which myth are you gonna bust first?
It's like a phytoestrogen, isn't it? So
yes. Okay, you got it. So
yeah,
it looks like estrogen, but it's actually not.
Okay.
Yeah. So the body thinks it's estrogen, but it's actually not, and it blocks those receptors. So yeah, it's funny, like the common refrain of like, oh, the soy boy, the feminized soy boy, you know, cow's milk actually has much more estrogen kind of base to it, because it is, you know, for it's young, it's for babies, right?
yeah.
So
They increase the
ironically, like cow's milk actually has more estrogen.
Okay, no, that's good to know. And also in terms of where you guys get it from, because I've never bought it before, where are your go-to places? Is it available in standard supermarkets, or do I need to go to special places?
It's like the most common well, it's not really a meat substitute because it doesn't really taste like meat, but you know, like proteiny vegan thing. And to make it taste like nice, I mean, soy, what do you call it? No, tofu. Tofu, it's only as nice as the thing that you marinate it in or flavor it in. So, you know, I like to marinate it in like soy sauce and honey with some sesame seeds and fry it up. What about you, Seren?
I'd say pesto is always one people don't think about, but that's good. But Jess, I know the Asda near you will do it.
Okay, cool. I'm not there anymore, you know, so I'm just thinking Morrison's maybe. I know they have that world food aisle, and then there's also some vegan options. I'll just give it a look tomorrow, and I'll let you guys know how I get on. Yeah, thank you for that. That's cool. I think that was my only question.
Anyone else, or should we wrap it up? Cool. Yeah, cool. Well, thanks to everyone who came. Yeah, I've not done something like this myself. I've like hosted all of the rest of them, but I haven't actually spoken. So yeah, thanks. I'll post the links to the crowdfunder and the link tree. So like if you want to come to the next two, which will be same time over the next 2 weeks, they'll be on like zero carbon planning and like anti-racist activism and migrant refugee activism in Leeds. There'll be the next 2 weeks, but then after that it will be like in-person events, workshops, club nights and fundraisers and stuff. So but yeah, like donate to our crowdfunder if you want to support migrants and refugees. But yeah, thanks guys.
Awesome. I'd just like to quickly add, is there any chance you'd be able to send us this slideshow so that we can have a bit more of a look at ourselves? Yeah, and could you also maybe link the videos, because for some reason it wasn't playing properly on our screen here.
Yeah, cool. I'll send you my email, so if you just
brilliant. Yeah, or if you want to connect on Instagram, whatever's best for you.
Yeah, cool. So my Instagram, I'll just put it all in there.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
Is it pop quality?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you know Hussein, right?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Okay, I'll follow you now. It's my name's on Instagram is 44spirit77, so you'll recognize it.
Nice. Okay. Cool.
Brilliant.
It's such a small world, man. This is so crazy. I'm speaking to Lucas and B this week, and now you're both here. It's just like, yes.
Magic.
It is magic. Together. Also, Seren, I just want to ask you because, touching upon what Lucas said, the whole banana peel thing, I find fascinating. That really blew my mind. So I actually recorded it when you were demonstrating that. Do you mind?
On YouTube.
Is it on YouTube? Okay, cool. So I think that is something that definitely needs to be shared. And also I was having conversations with people recently about making soil a bit more fertile and growing our own fruit and veg. So that was really just got me. That was incredible. So thank you for sharing that. And I'll give that a look on YouTube now, actually. I'll grab my phone.
Cool.
So what do I type into YouTube? Sorry, is it just like
if you type in like Seren Oakley banana peel.
Is it actually? Did you do it on YouTube?
Yeah, I put it on my YouTube in case, because I thought it might come up, and I was like, just to back it up a bit.
Yes, love that. Okay. I can't find it. Hang on, Seren Oakley. Yeah, I've spelled that right.
Yeah, and then it's how I'll find the link quickly, I think.
No, I've got it. How to
okay.
cook banana peel, pull the banana peel.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, that is getting shared right now. So yeah.
Will you link? What are you sharing it on, Jazz?
Facebook and Insta.
Brilliant. Okay, cool. I'll see
And
that then.
Telegram for anyone who wants it. I just think that's absolutely incredible. Really.
Thanks, man.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was really, really
Yeah,
insightful.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Seren.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, guys. I'm gonna end the meeting, but you guys can keep chatting.
Bye bye.
Lots of
Lovely
love.
meeting you all.